Hey guys, my name is Matsumiao, and today we've learned that a lot of changes are coming to Rainbow Six Siege in this upcoming patch. The first big one is that Vigil is going to be getting nerfed. The activation time on his gadget is going to be reduced from 30 seconds down to 12 seconds. It's not going to last as long, but also to offset this, the recharge time on his gadget is going to be decreased as well from 6 seconds to 12 seconds. So basically, you're going to be able to activate this more frequently, but it isn't going to last as long. Ubisoft's reasoning for doing this is that right now, Vigil is the preferred roamer of choice. He is the top dog for roaming around the map. Ever since Ella got the nerf, he has basically taken her place. His pick rate in the Diamond and Platinum category is, I believe, at 50% right now, and he also has an above average win rate as well. And so I can see why Ubisoft is making these changes. He's got two awesome weapons. His primary is fantastic. His secondary just melts people up close. He's 3 speed, which is always desirable. And while I know that some people find his gadget to be a bit lackluster, in reality, it's also really good in the right hands. It doesn't matter that I know that a Vigil is nearby if I don't know exactly where that player is. If I have to enter into a giant room where I have a vague idea of where he's located, that really favors the Vigil. And because he has the 3 speed, he can relocate very quickly. And so I'm curious to see how this change is going to affect his dynamic. It's definitely going to require a lot more finesse and skill to use his gadget properly. You can't just activate it for 30 seconds and call it good and slow down the droning process of the offensive team. You're going to need to move around a little bit more. You're going to need to be a bit more stealthy with him. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I know that Vigil mains are probably not too thrilled by this news, but if his pick rate and win rate are that high, I can understand where Ubisoft is coming from. Another significant change that is coming with this update is that Ying is no longer going to have access to smoke nades, but is now going to be able to use claymores. The reason for doing this is twofold. First of all, it's to offset the buff that is happening to all LMGs, which includes Ying. Every single LMG in the game, I believe, is seeing an increase into their damage. LMGs across the board are pretty weak right now. They've got slow rate of fire, not a lot of damage, usually a lot of recoil as well, and while yes, they have a lot of rounds, that usually doesn't offset all of the negative qualities associated with it. And so one way that Ubisoft is trying to make them more appealing is to give them a bit more punch. They're going to do more damage. And so to make sure that Ying doesn't become blatantly overpowered is that they are removing that smoke nade. A tactic I'm sure a lot of you guys are all accustomed to right now, and the reason why Ying in the right hands is really strong is to smoke out the objective, flash everything, and then plant the diffuser. Even if you have the right operators to deal with a smoke plant, like a smoke itself or a Mira, if you're blind, you can't even use your gadget properly. It basically guarantees a free plant. They deemed that too powerful, especially with the buff to the LMG. Essentially, Ying is losing some utility in exchange for the ability to take people out a lot faster, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. This will hopefully make Ying a lot more satisfying to use, at least with regard to her weapon. Right now, it just feels like you're throwing rocks at the enemy, but on top of that, this will also mean that hopefully her smoke and Candela charge plans are not going to be as difficult to deal with because you are going to require some more teamwork and coordination. You're going to need to bring a Jackal or someone who has access to smoke if you want to pull off one of those maneuvers. So I also think that's a good thing. Another change that's coming, which shouldn't surprise anyone because it seems like he's always getting changed every single patch, is Blitz. He's getting another nerf. They're dropping the range of his flash from 8 meters down to 5 meters. The reason for doing this is that they said that Blitz is meant for extreme close encounter combats. You would think that 8 meters would fit into that category, but apparently the average kill is within 9 meter distance. So if you need to go extreme, then I guess 5 meters makes sense. I understand why they're making this change because Blitz is strong. You look at the chart that they gave us, he's got a very high win rate. Like, he's in a very good spot right now. Maybe not as high as some of the others, which we'll get to here in a second, but I think one factor that Ubisoft takes in consideration is the idea of, is this character annoying to fight against? Blitz, I feel, is the epitome of that. And so by requiring him to close the gap a little bit more, it's hopefully going to allow defenders a bit more room to react to the situation. In general, though, It just seems like Ubisoft is struggling to make this operator work. They, on the one hand, want to make him fun to use and have a high pick rate, but on the other, they don't want to make him blatantly overpowered and just frustrating to deal with. They're having a difficult time finding that sweet spot. And so I'm crossing my fingers that this is going to do it. I'm hoping that this is going to be the last change to Blitz and he isn't going to see any more adjustments, because I'm sure those Blitz mains out there, it just feels like a roller coaster ride because he seems like a completely different operator than he was 6 months ago. One thing I know a lot of Jager mains are going to be ecstatic about though is that his gadget is no longer going to snipe Hibana's pellets out of the air. Hibana was effectively able to take out every single one of Jager's ADSs by just shooting this into a room. Now, I don't know exactly why you'd want to have every single ADS in one location, but if you were really trying to stop people from throwing nades into the one section of the map, she could toss that on in and every single one of his ADSs would be activated, rendering them essentially useless. And while I'm sure there are some Jager mains out there that do try to do this intentionally, they place down their ADS in a spot so that when Hibana does try to open up a hole, it snipes a couple of those pellets out of the air, and that hole is nowhere near as large as Hibana originally intended it to be. But I think most Jager mains out there are going to be excited about this news because his gadget is now going to actually be used as intended, which is to take out those nades that are being thrown onto the objective. The last major change that is coming with this update is that Lion is finally getting the nerf that he deserves. Now, many of us already knew it was coming because we tried this out on the technical test servers not too long ago, but basically, if Lion has his gadget activated, as a defender, you can move, you will be spotted, but as soon as you stop moving, you will no longer be highlighted by his gadget. So if they're observant to their surroundings, they may see you moving out in the distance, but as soon as you stand still, you're good to go. They might still shoot in your general area because they saw where you stopped, but if you were quick enough, they may not even have recognized where you were to begin with, but also you can save yourself by going prone down to the ground, so hopefully they won't get that wallbang against you. The other big difference is that you're only going to be able to activate his gadget twice in a round, so it's down from 3, which is huge, and also there's going to be a 20-second window between when you can activate your gadget, so you can't spam it as frequently. All in all, though, I'm hopeful that this is going to make Lion more manageable and less ridiculous to play against. I still think he's going to be strong. I don't think that Lion is going anywhere, especially in a well-coordinated team. Yes, you can't activate it as often. There is going to be a longer gap between activations, and there's a little more wiggle room for the defensive team to work around it. But in a well-coordinated team, I don't think that's really going to matter. As soon as you get droned out, the enemy charges on in and knowing exactly where you are, because at the end of the day, yes, being able to see them through walls is really powerful, but the real potency is forcing the defensive team to stand still, and that's where his strength lies. And I don't know if this is really going to change all that much, but of course, only time will tell. One thing I found really interesting about these patch notes, though, was the chart where we see that Finka has a ridiculously high win ratio. Her pick rate seems to be balanced, it's right where it needs to be with everyone else, but that win ratio is just through the roof. Even when you look over at Lion, for example, Lion has a much higher pick rate, which makes sense. He's the meta, everyone's playing him right now. Nowhere near as high as Ashe. Kind of curious why Ashe is so high and why she hasn't seen any more changes, but why is Finka all the way up there? Even Ubisoft admits in the article that they're not really entirely sure why her win ratio is that high. You would think that if it's that high, that everyone would want to play as her, but that's just not the case. And so maybe the Finka mains are just really good. They know what they're doing. I have absolutely no idea. And so they're going to be monitoring that. They might make some changes to reduce that a bit because it is so high, but it's just curious to see that she's average when it comes to pick rate, but has such a high win ratio in that platinum and diamond category. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we take off for today is that it looks like Ubisoft is also considering reducing the effectiveness of 3-speed operators while trying to increase the potency of 3-armor operators. As you all know, 3-speed is the meta. Yes, you can't take as many shots, but because you can move around so quickly, it's difficult for the enemy to actually line up those shots, and as long as you get the headshot against the enemy, it doesn't matter. And so even though these 3-armor can take a lot of rounds, in the long run, it doesn't really do a whole lot with that one-shot headshot mechanic. And while they haven't gone into any specific details, it appears that this is going to be something that they're going to be experimenting with on the test servers in the very near future, and I'm excited to see what they come up with. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about these patch notes. Are you looking forward to trying out the new and improved LMGs? Are you disappointed by some of the nerfs? Let me know down below in the comment section. But yeah, guys, until tomorrow, have a good one and take it easy.